I imagine that in the last couple of months, almost all of us have seen the image of Pope Francis caressing in one of his audiences this man who was highly, in many ways, in the world's image, not an attractive person to look at. A person whom St. Pope Francis not only touched him, but actually caressed him, hugged him, and kissed him. He, in many ways, exemplifies Pope Francis what Christ is today. In taking hold of this leper and touching him, which also in that today's society would render Jesus himself unclean, but willing to accept and bring into the oneness that this person is a person of dignity and not exclusion. We come off of a weekend followed by several weeks of Valentine's. Love. And the perfect love. What we find out is not that love is everything and looks are everything. Looks are the only thing that's really projected. And if you don't have the looks, love passed you by. As Father Jeff mentioned in his earlier homilies, love passed him and me by. And then he looked out. Good thing you didn't go to his masses, because he looked out and he says, and it seems like love's passed a lot of you by too. So that was his masses. You're not in that category. But that is the world we live in. Looks. It makes the impressions, lasting impressions. And as all the commercials show, if you don't have the right looks, you're not going to experience true love. And what Jesus brings to us and our faith challenges us is stretched beyond that. Jesus' sternness in this gospel, go show yourself to the priest, is really an exhortation to the leadership, society, who has set up these boundaries. Because a leper in those days, and even if you had the slightest blemish on your skin, eczema or whatever else it is, you are put in that category of leprosy. And you were detached from your families, you were taken away. You had to wear certain kinds of clothes and rags, never comb your hair, and ring bells around you so nobody would come close to you. You were an extreme exception, disconnected from relationships. And this man says to this guy today, in his response, Lord, if you will it, you can change me. You can heal me. And that is our challenge for us. Do we will it? Do we will? Because that's what Christ says, I do will it. And he reached out. As Pope Francis in this wonderful image shows that he wills, and he leads us by example, especially for us priests and leaders of the church, but for all of us in the name of Christ, as St. Paul says, as he is an imitator of Christ, imitate us, because that's the way people are going to find Christ, is through our outward sign. What we look at, who we look at, and how we look upon whom we look at. And our challenges for Lent and what we do, again, borrowing from Father Jeff's earlier homily, he says it's time for us to put away the wimpy things we did as 7-year-olds, giving up Flint, whatever those things are. Let the 7-year-olds and people give up those things. For we are adult, what are we challenged to do, to be? And not only will we do that through our rice bowl that you'll hear about at the end of the Mass, but something personal. Personal that we do touch people's lives in some way during this season. Of reaching out and being that visible kind of sense of inclusion instead of exclusion. That is what our lives are all about in being Christ. We receive the body of Christ, his invisible presence becomes a visible presence to us. Pope Francis is illustrating that almost daily in his challenges to, again, leadership of the church, but to all of us who carry on that name of Christ. And as we journey through this season of Lent, let us ponder those words. If you will to do this, let us truly, in an active way, will to reach out. I do will it. And allow this time to be a new beginning, not only for us that we will experience, but for this person and afterwards. His whole life is being changed. Whom is now being included in his life. How they're seeing him differently because of the example of one person who had the courage to reach out, touch and caress, and know that he's loved. That is what Christ brings to each one of us. He wills to do it. May we will to do the same.